People are often surprised to learn how many families actually do apply for need-based aid at Barstow. In any given year, our application percentage ranges somewhere between 18% to 25% of families at Barstow. So a fairly significant number of families apply for need-based aid here at the school. Applications for financial aid, you can begin them as early as November the 1st, the year prior to the aid being awarded. And then all the applications are due by February 1st in the year that you'll be applying for the aid to be administered. Typically what families will do is they need to use estimated figures because we do ask that your tax information is included with it. If this is your first year to apply, you need to include 2 years of tax information, the previous year and the current year. If it's a continuing application, then you'll just need to include that year's tax information with your application for aid. Once we receive the applications in February, the Financial Aid Committee will then meet during the month of February, and all of the aid will be administered by the beginning of March for applications that are received on the 1st. If additional aid is available, if dollars remain, then the committee tries to continue meeting until all the needs are met or the financial aid budget is exhausted. To accept your financial aid package, you'll get a packet in the mail with an award amount. To accept the award, you send back 2 things to the school. You'll need to send back a signed contract, and then you also need to send back a signed award acceptance letter. Those need to be received in the office no later than March the 15th. Then the next piece of the puzzle, and this is one that sometimes trips people up, is you need to make sure that you upload your taxes to the online system for applications. Those tax forms can be uploaded at any time after they've been completed, but then after April the 15th, the admission office goes back through those files to verify the estimated numbers. If your taxes end up being significantly different than what your estimated figures were, we'll review that amount and adjust your award accordingly. A significant difference would be an amount that's more than about $5,000 in income. That's what we typically see makes a difference on the total package and the total award amounts. In the administration of financial aid, there are certain principles of good practice to which we adhere. One of those is confidentiality, and I want you to be assured that if you apply for aid, there will be a very, very small number of people within the school community who will know. The only people who even know if an aid application has been received are the members of the Financial Aid and Scholarship Committee. There are typically no more than 5 members of that committee. They meet periodically to review aid applications. And if they have any questions, a member of the committee may contact you. Typically, I am that individual who contacts families with follow-up questions. And please know that when I do contact you, that conversation will be in confidence as well. My door is always open if you have any questions and would like to review the process or just want to know more about it. You can always come by the admission office at Barstow and I'd be happy to tell you more about what we do. So how do we actually determine aid at Barstow? Well, what you'll do first is fill out an application online through our website. To get to the applications, you'll go to barstowschool.org and then you go to the applying section. Under applying, there's going to be a financing tab and a big button that says Financial Aid Apply Now. You click on that and that will take you to our third-party vendor application through School and Student Services, or we call them SSS. You'll fill out that application online. I'll tell you now, it's kind of lengthy. You should probably block out about 4 hours in order to get the application completed. That application is going to ask you for information about your taxes. It'll ask you for information on your house, the value of your house. It'll ask you for the number of vehicles that you have, the number of children that you have in your family, the number of those children who are going to tuition-paying schools. So all those figures go into the formula for the administration of aid. And then SSS's formula is applied to your family's income level. What that results in is something called the Expected Family Contribution, or EFC for short. The EFC is what SSS says that your family can afford to contribute toward tuition. In an ideal world, what Barstow would be able to do is have a limitless pool of financial aid dollars, and we'd be able to meet your full need. What we have is a slightly less than limitless pool. So what we do is that we say a family's need will be met at 60%. So for example, if your family had $10,000 that was due for tuition, and you filled out the online application and SSS came back and said your expected family contribution would be $0, it's been a tough year, then you would have an unmet need of $10,000. Barstow would then package 60% of that need, which would be a package of $6,000, which would leave $4,000 that would be the responsibility of the family. As a general rule, that's what we do. We take 60% of a family's unmet need, and that unmet need is what the financial aid package amount will be. want to know how often aid applications are required. Every year, we ask that families reapply for need-based aid for several reasons, not the least of which is your family's financial situation can change, and we want to make sure that your aid package reflects that. I've talked about the principles of good practice that we try and adhere to in the aid process, and another one of those is the consistency of an aid package. If your family's income level remains rather consistent, and I would say that equates with less than $5,000 in fluctuation between income from year to year, then what we try and do is make sure that we're able to give the same dollar amount of aid every year. If the question were to come up, do I get to keep my aid forever? The answer would be yes, provided your income level remains fairly consistent. There are several things that can affect the amount of your award package. Things that over the years I've noticed that have a significant impact on aid would be children who are in tuition charging schools. If you go from having 3 kids in a tuition charging school to only having 2, there would be a significant decrease in the amount of need that you would show by having that income lost in your family or that expenditure lost in your family. Other things that I see that can significantly impact a family's status for aid would be if there are assets that are outside of income. So for instance, if you have investments, if there is a trust that is in the child's name, if the child has significant savings, if there is a Social Security benefit that a child receives. All of those things tend to have a significant impact on whether or not a child will show eligibility and a family will have need eligibility. There's often questions when there are families who have multiple households, where parents may be divorced or otherwise living in separate households. We do definitely take that into consideration, and going back to the principles of good practice in the administration of need-based aid, one of the things that we believe strongly in is that the responsibility for the payment of tuition primarily resides within the family. And the first place that a family should go to look for payment would be within their own funds, and that means both family parties. Now, if there is a legal document that outlines what the family's responsibilities will be in relationship to the payment of tuition, that's documentation that you'll need to provide to the school, and we'll take that into consideration when we administer the aid package that is available. Another important factor to consider is that we do expect that both parents are working full-time when they're applying for aid. If the family chooses to have one parent who does not work, certainly the choice that you can make, but part of what we'll do in the financial aid process is that we will apply a wage to that non-working parent. Typically it's in the amount of about $30,000, and that will then be figured into the family's eligibility for aid. Oftentimes, families can have financial situations that change mid-year. If that's the case, the most important thing that you can do is to communicate with us and keep us informed of how things are changing for your family. If there's a loss of a job or someone gets a new job, those types of situations can have a pretty significant impact on a family's eligibility for aid. Typically, aid packages are figured on the previous year's taxes, but if there is an extenuating circumstance, the school can definitely take that into consideration mid-year. Pending that funds are available, we would make an adjustment if we can. We can't always, sometimes we've already exhausted the budget, but we're happy to review it if something should happen mid-year. We always want to make sure that families who've made the commitment to Barstow can stay here, even if you've hit a rough patch. Families who don't qualify for aid will often ask if there are any other opportunities for assistance to help financially. Barstow does have a very limited number of merit-based scholarships, and those awards are offered to students when they are new entering the school. We don't have hardly any awards that are available for existing students who are matriculating through the grades. Merit-based awards, students are considered beginning in 6th grade for the merit-based awards, and the typical amounts you would see in a merit-based award would be somewhere between $1,000 and $4,000 per student per year. Those are renewable every year as long as the student maintains good standing. I wish that I had more scholarship dollars, frankly, to be able to award, because we have some amazing students here at Barstow. As it stands now, every year there's a handful of students who receive merit-based scholarships. So it's not a large pool, but it is a pool that exists, and it's one that families are welcome to apply for. There's not a separate application that's required, but when you apply for admission, one of the options that you have on your application for admission is to check the box to receive more information and be considered for scholarships and/or need-based aid. That's all you need to do to be considered within the scholarship pool. I think one of the things that's most difficult for families when they're considering applying for need-based aid is just making sure they're comfortable with the process. And I want to make sure that you know that I'm here to answer any questions that you have, much like the admission process or any other application that you would fill out. I want to make sure you feel comfortable in filling out the financial aid application. I'm always available. You can stop by the admissions office anytime. In addition to my help, you also have the assistance of School and Student Services, SSS, our vendor who helps us with the application for admission, and you can contact them as well for direct information on how to fill out the forms online. I look forward to reviewing your family's application, and again, if there are any questions, always feel free to contact me.